I'm going to introduce Lydia here, a beloved member of our community. I first met you, Lydia, again about 6 years ago when I flew up to San Francisco to listen to some final presentations and didn't know anybody, and it was gray and raining, and I was sitting in the back of the room, and I didn't really know where I was, and at the end of the talks, Lydia just came up and she was like, who are you, where are you from, what are you doing here? And immediately was like, get in my car, we're going to a party in the East Bay, and where are you staying? I was like, some hotel. She's like, no, you're not, you're staying with me. And just immediately I was swooped up and swooped in, and it was really amazing. And I think that's a quality that you really carry everywhere and with whomever you meet. And in particular, I've been really touched by your work with Joanna Macy. I know you've been working with her quite a bit, and to see your commitment to what the planet is going through and what the earth is going through, and to honor and acknowledge the wounding, the grief, the pain that's happening on a collective level has been really amazing. And now as you're leaving PCC and starting your work at Pacifica Graduate Institute to do some depth psychology, I see it as a real way for you to bring in the depths of psyche into the work that you've already been doing interpersonally and as a collective with culture at large. And just really been touched by your commitment to community, to tribe, to healing, to food, to nourishment. It's been a really beautiful thing to see you evolve over these years. It's been a real pleasure and a privilege. And this last year has been really intense. And I just want to say, I feel like as a friend, I've seen you emerging out of this passing of your mother in a new way as a new woman. And I see it almost like you've accepted it as an invitation into a new way of being, and into the initiation of depth and death and grief, and seeing what you have to offer now from that place. So I'm really honored, and it's been a pleasure to be with you on this journey, and looking forward to what you have to share with us. Thank you. Lydia Harutoonian.
Oh, when I die, the earth shall carry me. Oh, when I'm dying, my mother shall carry me. Oh, when I'm dying, the mother shall carry me, and I'm already home. Oh, when I die, the earth shall carry me. Yes, when I die, my mother will carry me. Oh, when I die, the mother shall carry me, and we're already home. Thank you so much for coming and joining all of us as we explore this experience and the aliveness of death and dying. I really want to start by honoring all of the people that and beings, not just people, that any of us, we all have different experiences in relationship to death and dying, and just want to give presence to anyone who has joined the realm of the ancestors in my life and in your lives. And we have a community member whose cousin passed away yesterday. And so if we want to just give a moment of visualizing that his passage is safe and well, and actually bringing in all of the beings and people who may be passing in this moment and transitioning right now. Yeah, just bringing a moment to them before we start. I feel excited and nervous to talk about this. As Jesse mentioned, I have been working in the realm of ecological grief, deep ecological fear, awareness of what's happening on the planet, and this is my first time speaking actually about this in a personal way, about personal death and dying. I just want to say that we're going to be speaking about something that is repressed in our culture. Repression happens when we're afraid of the pain of an experience or coming into contact with a certain reality or experience. And I really want to emphasize that in creating a space to attempt to bring into the room something that is repressed, safety and awareness of yourselves and all of us, that this is a safe place for you to be able to be yourself wherever you are in your process. And I'm going to do that too. That's a big topic. And I'm just at the beginning of understanding this. And I invite in, and I'm happy to invite in, voices into the room, your voices. So if at any point I say something and you have something you want to add, please feel free to raise your hand. I'm going to talk for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to do some experiential work and then leave time for discussion for this. So I'll start off by saying that, letting you that don't know that this is close to me because my own mother last June developed a brain tumor at 62, and I had 4 months with her, and I was with her the whole time. And then she passed away October 5th, so it's only been about a year. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this and I wanted to bring this in was because when my mother got sick, and when, as I realized that I was in the process of midwifing a dying rather than a healing to coming back to life, I realized the absolute unpreparedness that I had. Personally, because of my own life and not having friends that were close to me that when I was younger passed away, not having a closeness with death. It was my grandparents, was in the natural rhythm of things. And also becoming so aware of the culture that we live in that is repressing awareness and engagement with our own mortality in a way where we don't get to prepare for, in general, I'll say, to be with the dying of others. I think we can all resonate with the fear of the losing of our parents. Some of us already have in our lives, and some of us have that coming. And inevitably of our own dying. And I do want to emphasize a bit the dying. There is a repression of death itself, and then there is a repression of dying. We don't die around each other anymore. As I was researching this, I was finding some interesting things. I studied theater, and I was finding that in the American, European theater of the late 19th, early 20th century, you tended to find deathbed scenes in the plays. And a lot of the times, or one reason why we would find that is because the playwright could rely that a deathbed environment was something most people had experience with. Medicine wasn't where it was today. And even in America, which we tend to think of as death is hidden, that's pretty recent that death is hidden. Death and dying was happening more often and at home and in the house where children were growing up. It was just something we were around more. And I experienced a great amount of shock and a huge having to be really present with my radical unpreparedness to be with the passing of my mother. And that's multiple reasons, but one of them is the repression of this dying. So I just want to talk about that a little bit. There's a quote by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who really helped further the hospice movement in America, which came just in the 50s. Just in the 50s was it coming in to offer spiritual and physical and emotional outside support to ensure that people had this kind of support as they were going. I'm not saying that wasn't happening before, but I'll get more into the context of it. She wrote, "We live in a very particular death-denying society. We isolate both the dying and the old, and it serves a purpose. They are reminders of our own mortality. We should not institutionalize the dying." So reasons why we might be repressing this death. Yes, it's a reminder of our mortality, which is painful to us. Why is it? I don't want to diminish the natural fear of death that human beings might have. I think that it seems like it's a natural part of evolutionary biology to carry within you a fear of death, that in some way it's a way of ensuring survival and ensuring life. But even beyond that, so we have the Enlightenment in Europe, and we have the arising of the modern individuated self. I think, therefore I am. I am able to think independently and be independently. Myself is restricted to this being and this body. And with the rise of scientific materialism, myself could just be a random combination of atoms that when I die disappears back into nothingness and I am no more. When Nietzsche declared that God is dead, we potentially lost our connection to any kind of cosmology that connects us to the cycles of life and something that might come after the event of death and dying. And we live in this interesting context of God is dead, yet we still live within the most popular spiritual culture of salvation and damnation. So you can see the conflict with death and dying that this puts us in. To me, this is really symbolized by the burial vault. When my mother was buried, one of the things that I was absolutely shocked to see was that I knew she was going to be in a casket. What I didn't know is that when her casket was lowered and I looked in, I saw a concrete vault. As a gardener, as a person who respects so much the life-giving properties of the compost and the soil, I was horrified. And to me, this is a really good symbol for what we have done to our relationship to death and dying in our culture. We want to preserve the body. We want to separate it from the regenerating body of earth, which is there for us to return to. And so we can grow some awareness around that. I am just going to stick with the process of dying that is a return to life processes. We're learning in the deep ecology movement of the ecological self that our sense of self is actually a property. We're a verb that's a property of all our interrelations. And some veins of Buddhism have taught us that in every moment we're actually rising and passing away, rising and passing away. So actually, you might be dying in every moment and living in every moment at the same time. Freud was getting to this with eros and death. I just want to spend a few more minutes because I want to get to conversation. Another viewpoint of this I'd like to bring in is the way Freud wrote about the mother and the child. That when we begin our incarnations in this lifetime, we are fused with the oneness of the mother, and then we are given birth to. And our psyches, in a way, are still infused in oneness. We don't have memory yet. We're still infused with the oneness of our mothers and ourselves. And then at some point, at the exact same moment that we start differentiation, the gaining of the self, we, in a way, lose that oneness with our source. And that ends up being a process of life which brings with it its own grief and its own rage, and but also the possibility for relationship and the possibility for eros, that creative, vital energy that draws us towards each other, that draws water into flowers and into root system. It draws it out of us, and then our lives kind of become this series of the ins and outs of that oneness. And I'm just starting to learn about Freud, but one of the things I'm appreciating is the way that he talks about death as the return to that oneness that we actually, in a way, long for our whole lives. But that eros and death also have this antagonistic relationship, which is okay. We're living life. We're here to be alive, too. So instead of what society gives us death to be something to hide away, and we can know that we are repressing it in the way our culture and our government is really good and really proud of devising ways for other people to die. So we repress something and then we externalize it and we enact it on other people. We have power because we can make other people die. So what if one of the ways of healing what's happening on the planet right now, the return to mother, is to heal our own relationships and repression of death and of dying? What if the process of dying is the return to mother? Just a suggestion. It's probably a lot of different things. It's probably much bigger than I will ever grasp in my lifetime. The process of a flower dying and going back into the earth, and the earth's intelligence coming in and being able to compost it in a way that eros comes through and it's able to give vitality to life again. This is just something to hold as we try and sit with what is dying, as we try and reclaim it and understand what it is. There's a beautiful line that Elizabeth sent me from a Khalil Gibran poem that I think in one line encapsulates this. And it is, "And when the earth shall claim your limbs, then shall you truly dance." We go far beyond. We are this lifetime. You are this lifetime. I am Lydia right now. And there will come a day where I get to return to the mother. And I also lose my union with this life. There's the holographic nature of it all. But I know that the earth shall claim my limbs. I will not be buried in a concrete vault. Okay? Just a little note. Whoever's there, I'd like to be wrapped in a cloth and put in the ground. But yeah, that we are very old creatures. And there may be reincarnation. I don't know. It's a real possibility. There have been a lot of really interesting things that people have experienced, dying and coming back. So when I'm talking about returning to mother, I'm talking about it in like a physical matter way, but I'm also talking about it in a soul way. And so what if that's one of the projects of this time on earth when so much is being destroyed and so much is dying? How can we reclaim our relationship to it? I think that's all I'm going to say. So what I'd like to do is just take a few minutes and offer an exercise. I would like everyone to go at your own pace. I just want you to honor where you are and participate or not participate. It's something I did about a month ago, and it really helped me face a fear that I was holding around the dying process, and what it is to understand and make peace with my own dying. So we're going to turn to the person next to you, preferably someone maybe, you can decide for yourself, someone you know really well or someone you don't know really well. And what we're going to do is we are going to die together. I'll just take a few minutes. And I invite your courage with this, and I invite your imagination into this. To go there as far as you can go there. So, well, you can die in a three-way. You can do three-way dying. Yeah. If you can do three-way eros, you can do three-way dying. That's fine. And I'd like to invite in more conversation or anything you'd like to share that you're thinking or from this experiential piece. And I know that this is a big, wide subject, and I just got to a little piece of it, but yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned Freud, and I immediately thought of his idea of thanatos and how there's a death instinct as well as a life instinct. Mm-hmm. And we, it's our desire to destroy, which is battling our desire to create. And I don't know, I wanted to hear your opinion on whether you think thanatos is a real thing.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm just getting into the beginning of Freud. There are people in this room who probably know a bit more than I do, and I invite you to share. I'm just going to say one little piece that I know. The only part of the death drive that I've gotten to, and in astrology, Jessica set up this talk just like so perfectly, bringing in it's a time to bring in the what have we repressed? But anyway, the archetype of Pluto being the death, birth, creatrix, matrix of destruction and creation. When it comes to Freud's death drive, the only part I've gotten to, and this is from Chris Downing, who's just one Freud scholar, is that the death drive, at least part of it, the part that I have come into contact with is the desire to return to wholeness and be free from the different things that we encounter in mortal reality. So I haven't gotten to the part yet where it's about, where it's a drive to destroy. I'm sure that we have that, and I'm sure that that's included in that, but I don't know about it yet because I just started. I don't know if you guys have anything, but yeah. But I'll look into it. I'm going to be looking into this. I'm going to be looking into it for a while. Part of why this talk happened is because I had a very big experience at Burning Man this year that made it very clear that I needed to integrate death and dying more into my work. So I didn't even get to the planetary hospice stuff, but if you want to talk about that, just come talk to me and we can talk about it. But the midwifery, the hospice care, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if we're going to make it out. We don't know if we're not going to make it out. My teacher, Joanna Macy, she says, don't trust anyone who tells you what's going to happen. But yeah, what comes in with the honoring of death? I can say from my personal experience, I thought after my mother died, the experience itself was cloaked in numinosity. It was not like a breakup. It was not like I felt the gifts and the lessons of this thing a year from now. As she was sitting in front of me, losing her functions, and I was sitting in the excruciating agony of being with her dying, partially because I didn't have preparation, partially because it's excruciating, I couldn't believe the numinosity that death came in with. And I'm sure you guys have experienced this, those of you that have been with someone who's dying. I did not know that was going to happen. And life came in so strongly. It was coupled. Freud calls Eros and death the twin titans. They were coupled together. It's not to say that afterwards I didn't have a period of rejecting all of reality and saying, fuck it, fuck meaning, fuck all this. But I'm sitting here today, keeping going in my process and coming to some of what I shared with you guys about. So, yeah.
Thank you for that wonderful talk. I considered going to school for funeral direction at one point, and doing research on the field itself and what was involved in it, and seeing modern funerary practices and seeing that divorce from the natural occurrence was something that turned me off to pursuing that as a career ultimately.
Yeah.
How you tied that into our current crisis and the externalization of death. How do you have a vision for how we can restore a more natural process of
Sure.
death in our culture and society in this climate?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So one of the big problems with how we, all of us probably will have to deal with this already have when somebody has passed away, is that there's a major economic side to it in our culture. I found myself when my mother was passing away and had passed away, my family and I had to simultaneously attempt to grieve my mother's passing and also find the money to bury her. We had to find specifically $18,000 so that we could bury her next to her mother, my grandmother, who had been buried not long before that. So this is a problem. This is an issue. Okay, so that's part of facing death in 2014 that we all get the opportunity to try and help figure out. The cool thing is that I am not the first person who has wanted a healthier relationship to death and dying to come into our culture. So there are many people and many movements, the hospice movement was just one of them, that are attempting to bring into our society a healthier relationship to death and dying. There's an eco-burial site just in Marin, where they wrap you in a cloth and they bury you under an oak tree. And they make sure that it's all going to be fine, that we respect the composting principles of nature as we do this. You know, as far as the exporting of death, as far as I've gotten with that is the personal venture of attempting to make peace and understanding my own dying. And as all I can do is notice what's going on and try and see it and know it, process my own feelings around it, acknowledge, try and speak truth to it so that there's some semblance of sanity happening, and hopefully find comrades in that. So that's all I got for now. I think we're done.
Thank you. Yeah.